All right, welcome everybody. You know this is obviously you're at Inventory is Not Your Friend. I'm just going to be moderating a little bit here, hanging out. I want to introduce Paul Guarracini, who owns Sager Beer Works. We were just talking about his past, which is right in my neighborhood, which is down the road from me, so I go there a lot. Really good beers, really good place. Nice, you get a lot out of a small space, food and beer-wise. Paul's one of those lucky guys that got to retire from Kodak, who maybe said, hey, I'm going to go open a brewery with somebody. And then he moved on and he opened another brewery. So Paul, thank you again for being here and doing this. And I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's great to be back again. A couple of years ago, I was here and we were talking about quality and process stability, things like that, using lean techniques, lean thinking. And so I'm back again. This time we're going to talk about inventory, and inventory is not your friend. That is something I hope I can ram through your heads here. So we're going to get into managing flow, talk about how to do that instead of inventory. As Paul said, from Sager Beer Works, it's in Rochester. Is this mic working, or should I use? Is this mic better? Is that better? Okay. Let me try this. I tend to like to walk around a little, so let me just try this a little bit better. Maybe it's better. Anyway, so Sager Beer Works, Rochester. It's a small 5-barrel brew pub. We have a tap room, kitchen, and it's a cute little place. You can see the pictures there. But we also cooperate the tap room with Stoneyard Brewing. It's pretty unique arrangement to have a dual brewery tap room set up, but it's a great business model for us and pretty cool. Okay, so inventory management. Okay, not so cool. Oh, look at this crowd. Oh, they're so excited. Anyway, but you could say boring. Yeah, why are we doing this? When we start breweries, get involved as brewers and owners. We're here to make and sell beer. That's the core thing. That's what we want to do. But there's all these, we'll say, necessary evils floating around there, and inventory management is one of them. But as you know, we've heard all this week, cost pressures are up. The business is maturing, and we really have to look at every aspect of operation for some savings and improvement opportunities. And inventory could be certainly one of them. But let's be careful, as I'll say probably at least one other time, we're not interested in spending money to save money. That's not the idea. We have to do it in a very cost-effective way. And lean manufacturing, lean thinking has some nice things in their toolkit, and that'll help us, and we'll go through some of those. So lean as an operational strategy, if you're not familiar with it, it's been around a long time. It was pioneered by the Japanese car companies back in the 60s, namely Toyota. And if you're familiar with Toyota, they're a very large, very successful car company, and they can certainly attribute their application of lean as one of the things that really made it for them. So the basic ideas have been spread around the world. They're applied in many other industries. I got involved as a supply chain manager and a lean consultant at Eastman Kodak, where I was there a long time. But basically, lean as a strategy covers a lot of aspects of manufacturing. But the number one thing is this idea of reduction of waste. So not just material waste, that's pretty obvious, but there's waste in all sorts of forms. Could be time, motion, information. Have too much of it can be wasteful, things like that. And so this reduction of waste is very central to it. And any of these things, such as waste, you can, I guess it's obvious, they're not good for the business. So you're trying to root them out permanently. And we're going to look at that. And sure enough, inventory is a waste. It's what they call one of the 7 deadly wastes. But not everybody thinks about waste that way. If you're an accountant, on the financial side, you look at balance sheets, inventory is an asset, positive thing. And if you're in the sales side of the business, and I see my sales rep in the back, they have this saying, or maybe they used to, it's an old saying, you can't sell out an empty bag. And so generally, sales managers and salespeople, they want lots of inventory. They want lots of it, lots of variety. To say they can't sell off an empty bag. So they don't look at it this way. But today, we are going to look at it as being a bad thing. So say it another way. Let's consider inventory as a problem that's holding up business success. Basically, it's hiding operational problems. And we'll get into the connection with operations in a moment. But let's look at it as poor supply chain coordination. You have this supply chain and it doesn't work very well. And in terms of flow, and what happens is inventory builds up in various places. And I'll show you more about that. So, but it comes down to how we sequence the brewery, how we sequence packaging, how we move things, how we interact with the distributor, all that stuff. That's all give rise to inventory if it's not coordinated or done efficiently. So I think we could agree that excessive inventory, probably you can say that can't be a good thing. Despite even if you're in sales, you probably can't say it's a good thing. As we know, beer ages, right? Hops age, things like that. So aging is a problem, and we want it to be fresh. So if you have too much, that could get in the way. But there's more than that. That those cases or those kegs sitting in your cooler, warehouse, whatever, they're taking up space. You could be doing something more efficiently with that space, and you've put money into it, right? That you spent labor and materials to make that beer, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. And if you'll extend that further, it's essentially revenue that you could have, but you're not because it's sitting there. So it's just not helping you just being in inventory. On the other side, of course, having too little, that can't be good either, right? With rotation nation still going on at the retail level, if you don't have that keg there, they'll call up somebody else and you'll lose the sale for that open tap. You're running a special release or something like that, and you run out, that can't be good either. So having too little can't be a good thing either. So there's probably, you can see where I'm headed, there's probably a role for inventory. It's not zero, but it's not really a lot either. Of course, there's potential for expediting and over time if you run out of things, and that's just adding to expenses that you really shouldn't be occurring. But where did all this come from? Where is inventory at its origin? How did it get here? Basically, and this is where we get into flow, it's the result of how we operate. Right? It didn't just show up. The way we operate, the way we make things, the way we move things, and how much we make, where we make it, all that enters into the inventory you're going to have. So if your operations up and down your supply chain, your inventory store, your brewing, your distributor, etc., if they're not aligned well, inventory is going to appear. It's going to back up in various places. It's one of the hidden costs of your operation. So related to that is the information side of things. Poor communication, poor information flow. And the reason that's important in this picture is that information leads the material, right? All the information, the material is going to sit there until there's a signal or something that's going to cause it to move. So if the information flow up and down your supply chain between you and your partners isn't good, that's definitely going to cause inventory to show up. And we got to be realistic here. So there are, lead times are real, right? We'll get into how you can attack those. But unless your brewery is right next to the maltster or a hop farm or something like that, there's going to be inventory on the ingredient side while you wait for the stuff to come, right? So that lead time is real, and there's a lot of serious barriers to that. And we'll see if we can attack that a little bit. But as long as the lead time isn't excessive, we're going to have to we'll live with it. But it's again, we're trying to control it. And despite the fact that it's reality. Same thing with batches, right? All our equipment and such, it's all designed to make batches. And that's can be a real constraint. And I'll talk more about where the inventory comes from that. But as I said, there are some good things maybe to inventory, right? We use it for quick response, right? Someone walks into your tap room, they ask for a pint of IPA, you can't go around say to them, sorry, you got to come in back in 2 weeks after we make it. So that obviously, right, that's not going to work. So there's some good use for inventory at the very front of your business. But again, we don't want it to be excessive. We want it to be appropriate. We're not in the brew-to-order business. I mean, that would be great, right? If we were, I just thought of the those old-style coffee machines, that you just put in 50 cents or something. It grinds the coffee and brews it, and adds the cream and all that, and pops it out in a little cup. I mean, that's brew-to-order, right? So 1 cup at a time. But we don't have that kind of business. So, but anyway, so that's where inventory comes from, roughly. So let's go back to lean and talk about some of the principles that we're going to try to apply that might be useful to us. So here's that word flow again. So we're going to try and manage the material and information flow in a simple, effective way. Remember, we don't have a lot of money, so we got to be very simple, very effective on how we do it. We're not really going to try and manage inventory directly. As I said, inventory is a result of how you operate your brewery and your supply chain. So by changing how we operate, we're going to drive out inventory, make that flow better. So I mentioned that inventory is sometimes considered a hidden cost. And so we use that term because sometimes the information or where the material actually is sort of out of the way. It's just not part of the normal operation, I guess, maybe. And so we want to make these flows very visible. You want that inventory to be in everyone's face, so to speak, because their focus should be on not having it and moving it. We want the material to be moving continuously as it gets processed through the brew house and out to the customer. So if we can keep it moving, there's no need for inventory. It goes away. Flow would be very, very high. But as I said, we have to be very cost effective, very careful on the changes we make so that they actually deliver a financial result, a business result we're looking for. And as I hinted to, we're poor, we're cheap. We're not going to spend any money doing this. No capital. We're not going to throw out your packaging line, get a different one. We can't afford that. So we have to be able to work with what we have. And as I said, lean has some interesting ideas that if you give it a lot of thought, stretch your mind a little, you can actually get some really good savings out of it. A little more about principles. I love this chart because this helps to explain where the money comes from, of sorts. So when you look at inventory sitting in a corner in a warehouse or something, there aren't checks being written against it or anything like that. So again, that's why we call it hidden cost. It doesn't look like you're necessarily, it's costing you anything, but it really is. And when you look at it from this perspective, something I call cash-to-cash cycle time, you start to see what the impact is really going to be. So if you just follow this little circle, we'll start at the upper right. So imagine we're starting with, you're buying some raw materials, so you're spending money, right? Cash is leaving the company, leaving the supply chain. You buy the stuff, it comes in, and it sits in inventory. and who knows, days, weeks, whatever. It's not doing anything, right? It's not moving around. Then you go to make that beer, and you spend more money, right? More money leaves the supply chain. You're spending money on brewing labor and power and rent and other things, etc. And you make the beer, ferment it, package it, etc. More inventory. That sits again, right? It's sitting now, waiting for it to be moved again, maybe it should be sold, etc., etc. The days and weeks going on there. You might even throw in some other money on it. Maybe you're going to move it to another warehouse, or maybe you're going to have to spend some money selling it or serving it even too. Some logistics money may be spent, etc. Then finally, the end of this story here, the money rolls in. The checks finally arrive. And that could be a long time. And so you think about the financial impact of that. If we could go around that circle really fast, that would be a great business model. We would be making money like crazy. So there are some companies actually that do a version of that. You think about some consumer electronics companies. You go to the website, give them your credit card, and they go and buy the parts, assemble them, get the finished product, fully loaded software, in a week or two or something like that. Huge model. They got the money up front. Wouldn't that be great? Why can't we do that? And actually, I'll give you a little example. We at Sager, we did try something like that. It was a special release beer for a charity, and we sold 4-packs up front for about a month or so. So we were getting revenue coming in, and we took that money. Then we bought the ingredients, had the labels designed, labels made the beer, told everybody when to come pick it up, which was hours after we had it canned. So talk about flow there, and that was great. Just think about how that works. So if you step back from how things usually work, where's all the time going? Where's all the time in this cycle time that's actually pretty long? Well, no surprise, right? It's in the inventory. So that material inventory and the beer inventory, that's where the time goes. So if you really want good cash gas cycle time, really short, you got to get rid of that stuff. You got to find a way not to have it on a regular basis. So that's really important here. So we have to find a way to get rid of that stuff. And then we're going to be very profitable. Your accountant friends will love you now, because the flow will be really strong, really strong. Not just the flow of material, the flow of cash. That's what we're talking about, right? All right. So enough of this theory stuff, Paul. I mean, let's go figure out what we can do, right? So we got to get back in the real world and come up with some ideas. Looks like I'm doing good here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is sort of a high-level thing I call analyzing your supply chain pipeline. So I want you to step back 10,000 feet, looking down on your business, and look at this hypothetical pipe. It starts with your raw material supply and goes all the way through, if you have a distributor, all the way to the final customer. And imagine all of these steps as one big pipe, right? It's all connected together. So you put raw materials in one end, and after some period of time, it pumps out the other end. Okay? Now, if you put too much in, relative to the rate it's going out the other end, what's going to happen? It's good thing it's going to get backed up, going to get sort of constipated. And imagine if we were looking at all of the inventory in this pipe, and we're comparing it against a certain sort of alarm level, we'll call it an upper limit, that triggers you and stops you from going further. We'll call that the upper limit, call it the purple zone, where the inventory in the pipeline is too high. And when I say the inventory, I mean the total inventory in the pipe. And what that should cause you to do is stop putting stuff in the back end, slow down, delay that schedule for that beer to next week or week after until the sum of this inventory is going to come down into a more normal range. Or maybe you can work with on the sales side to get more out the other end. You can do that too. Conversely, on the other side, if you look at this and you find the the inventory in this pipeline, this hypothetical pipeline, is too small, right? You're starving it. That's not good either. So you need to put more batches in that back end. You need to pull ahead the schedule of something maybe you were going to do next month. You need to do it now because you're draining out that pipe. So by studying these inventories in this way across the sum of this pipe, you can get some steering information of what to make when in a way that keeps the entire pipe or the entire supply chain in general stability, right? In the green zone. Things are just about right, so I can keep making that one batch every week, whatever. And so basically, maybe that's the basic math. When you're putting stuff in the back end, you're making things at the rate you're selling, right? We're not looking at the inventory, we're looking at the flow out, the flow in. That's going to minimize the inventory in general, not sort of, maybe it's the three bear analogy, right? The porridge is just right, not too hot, not too cool. Went too far there. So I'm just getting into some of the details on this slide that I verbalized. So from a practical sense, how do you do this? Well, you have a little spreadsheet, got a little math here involved, and I can certainly share the spreadsheet I use for doing this. Typically you'll do it like once a week. You do this little steering check, I guess. Maybe if you're brewing enough, maybe you're doing it 2 or 3 times a week, something like that. That could be done. But you're going to normalize it a bit. You're going to certainly have a common unit of measure. You got to convert everything to kegs and barrels and things like that. But basically you have to go add up the inventories up and down that chain and compare it against these upper and lower limit. And then you make a decision, should I continue to with the schedule I have, or should I pull ahead or push out batches so I keep everything nicely aligned? Oh yeah, so this calculation is done, I do it for each family, but you probably would do it if you're bigger. You can do it for each brand. Each brand every week or a couple times a week, okay? Yeah, you'll need to do some more math to come up with some demand factors, sort of normalize the rates, because some brands are just naturally a lot faster than others, and a bit more math on the upper and lower control limits, as we call them. The upper limit is more driven by calculations, more driven by like space or financial concerns, and the lower limit is driven very much by how fast you can respond, get more into the pipe, so you react soon enough to do something about it, so you don't run out of things. So if you have a distributor, you definitely want to include their data in this pipeline calculation. And sometimes they're not all that big about providing that information, either timely or at all. And so I'd say that could be a challenge, but you really want it. You really want to treat them like an extension of your supply chain tactically in this kind of way. So very high level steering idea. Keep all those inventories in total pretty much in the green zone, as we say. Not too much, not too little. So now we're going to go look at each element of the supply chain and give you some more ideas on how you can tweak those inventories too, and the root causes for those. Ingredient purchasing is sort of a tough nut to crack. We know that there's some hard things we can't get around. Full bags, full boxes, full pallets, LTL freight versus UPS. We have to take those as given, and so that's going to give rise to some inventory. So again, we're not really on a path of zero inventory, but we're trying to control it to as low as we can. So we have to deal with some inventory on your back end of your supply chain, and that's there's some virtue there. The base grain, very flexible. You can make a lot of things out of it, so it tends to be cheaper than if it's on the front end as finished goods. So maybe if we're forced to have some there, that's not all that bad. But here's a couple things you can do. So there's a brewery in Rochester. I'm not sure how effective it is for them, but they actually buy to the brewing schedule. So each time they do a batch, they actually purchase the entire kit of items. And it sort of reminded me of when I was a home brewer. And you're buying a kit, a beer kit. It comes with everything you need in exactly the right proportions. You just take it out and put it in. Imagine we had a company doing that. Imagine you got this pallet that showed up and it had pre-packaged batches on it, maybe 2 or 3 batches or something. It's already wrapped up. You sent them their recipe and they did that for you. And that would be great. You'd be absolutely no inventory needed. You just unpack it and put it in the fermenter and off you go. Sorry, off into the brew house. So that would be kind of good. That would be a way to get rid of that. But again, I don't know if there's any company doing that. But that's the idea. That's the general idea of buying to the schedule. So, again, don't pay a lot more if you're going to try this strategy. But, you do the math, find out. Might be worth it. I mean, especially for specialty grains, where you're typically not using, unless you're really big, you're not using full bags, and you're always going to have a residual inventory. There's a co-op. Could be some co-op arrangements with other local breweries. You gather together to do a purchase and avoid extra inventory, share bags, share pallets, things like that. I mean, it's a lot of work to do that. That could be another business idea too. I was talking with Dan from, I think it's called the Brewery Federation. It's a group purchasing organization. So they're trying to do that same idea, but I'd like to see that locally, so all the breweries in a given area can participate. They all come into a warehouse and pick up their kits, pick up their stuff. That could be good. There are homebrew clubs that maybe can allow you to buy efficiently small amounts and things like that. That could work. Some local suppliers, they pay the freight. Maybe they don't dig you too much on the upcharge when they do that. That another way to again buy to the schedule, buy just what you need, and not have this residual inventory left over because it's a partial thing like that. So. But one of my favorite ideas is the last one there, is looking at your recipes. And think about your recipe design. I mean, there's, a dozen different kinds of crystal malt out there, and you don't have to stock them all, right? Think about your recipes and how can I get more mileage out of fewer variety, particularly for specialty malts. Now, I'm not saying, you should make everything, all the malt bills and hop bills to be the same. That would not be very interesting. And you don't want to give up on the uniqueness of your recipes. But don't go nuts. There was a brewery that I know of that unfortunately closed, and they had a sale to sell off all the materials. They had all sorts of things, a few pounds of this, a bag of this, and all this leftover stuff. Because they just went nuts with variety in the recipes. They really didn't focus on the recipe design to see how can we make these beers tasty and unique with having as few materials as possible. Because the ones that you have then, they're going to flow faster. You're going to go through that bag faster. And they can be fresher too. You're going to buy those bags more often, so they won't stick around for this long. Simple things. There's a lot of little hits here, so there's no one big thing to really, as we say, sharpen and work the saw here. So moving down the supply chain into the brew house, so we have lead times. Okay, all right. So in a perfect world, right? Stuff comes in, you brew it, you grind it, brew it, carbonate it, pack it. And it flies out the door, gets drunk the next day. That would be great, right? That's that cash cycle time. If you could actually do that, that would be really good. But, of course, we call that just-in-time thinking. And in that scenario, the material never stops moving, never sits, and there's just no inventory needed, right? That would be really great. But that's not the world we live in. We have to step back from that and think of what lead times do we have? What do we really need? Okay, so there are time and place. You can't get over that. As I said before, things take longer too. Not just what you expect. They take longer. Things break. There are delays, there are upsets, and all that stuff. So, unfortunately, that can get us into this just-in-case kind of mindset. So we start to tack on extra days to our lead time, our standard lead times, because we can't really work through all these problems, right? But I'm telling you, you have to attack those problems. You have to really study how long things take, how long it takes to buy things, how long it takes to make things, clean things, and move things, and all of that stuff. You really want to understand how much time it does take and how much time it should take. I'm really interested in the variation. How does it vary? Because that's the opportunity. Was it yesterday? I think there was a woman from Queen City Yeast Lab, I think. She was talking about yeast propagation and how by propagating properly your own yeast in-house, you can drive faster and more consistent fermentation. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Get it more standard and more predictable. That would be perfect. She is actually giving you an idea on how to drive down the fermentation lead time. That would be great. So, anyway, so basically you want to study those lead times, particularly how they vary, collect some data, batches and batches of data. Then you get a sense of what it could be, and then you start working towards making it so. And it'll take a little work, but you have to really decide that the variations can be controlled. So a little more on how to do that, maybe, or how to explain that is on the next slide. Imagine, so just looking at the slide here, various stages of supply chain on the left, purchasing, brewing, packaging, distribution, and across the top, different colored bars. The first one, the lighter colors, process time, that we can't get out of. I mean, that's how long things actually take. You know, I can't make that faster. That's what it is, right? And then there's the variation. That's what I'm trying to get at. You, in terms of managing lead times, you want to get at the variation. How does it vary? And squeeze that out. That's money in the bank. Make that supply chain tighter and shorter. And again, that yeast propagation example is a very good one. The wait time, there's a lot of time there. That's the actual inventory sitting around not doing anything. But we're going to get to that in a little bit. The lead times at sometimes can be really hard, but until you study them, you don't know. You don't know where the waste is. Here's a nice little technique that we use. I call it smoothing the brewing schedule. So imagine that you worked really hard to develop a simple, repeatable schedule about brewing and packaging, things like that. We call it, in Lean, we call it make every day the same, or maybe it's make every week the same, or something like that. Very repeatable, predictable patterns. So what happens is, a lot of that variation in time falls away. Tank availability, it's like clockwork. On Tuesday, it's available. So there's no question what's going to happen, what needs to be done. And that has some other good effects too, other than lead time. It's, everybody who works there was going to like this because they know how to rearrange the other parts of their life because they know what the work schedule is going to be, and it's always the same. It's really good. And there's another knock-on effect of that is when everyone is focused, errors go down, mistakes, human errors start to go down, safety goes up, and quality can go up because, again, human errors are not being made. So this stability idea, driving out lead time, the variation in lead time, and it has some other benefits too. So can't knock that either. All right, batches. So that's a tough one. Tough nut to crack. You know, all of our equipment is designed to make things in batches. We don't make, 1 pint at a time. That would be great, hit a button and out it comes. That would be great, but we don't have that. And the equipment is, of course, designed to do that, but there are still some things we can do. So first you need to, particularly in brew house, you need to study the equipment, do some tests, find out, can I make a smaller batch on this equipment technically, all right? So there's some concerns there. One is, of course, the mash tun is the grain depth, where the probes it's still at the right height. The rake, maybe, you have to make sure the grain is at the right level there, etc. The heating elements, make sure they're, you can go down to a lower batch. I mean, most systems that I've seen, that's quite possible. In our brew house, we can go down to a 4 or 3 barrel batch, and it comes out just fine. So we don't have any problems with that. So it's a technical question. Can this physically be done? So that's what you want to study, and you probably already guessed. Well, isn't that going to cost me a bunch more labor because the time to brew the batch is the same and all that stuff? It's not as linear an increase as you think, because if I was making a 3-barrel batch of my 5, well, there's less material that I have to grain in with, and there's less liquid to be pumped, so there's less time in my brew. The brew day gets smaller when you make a smaller batch, at least in my place. So it's not going to cost you as much as you think, but as I said before, you got to be careful. You got to be real careful. You're not pouring money down the drain. So, but what about batches for packaging lines? So that's it's not a batch process, as you know. But your analysis now shifts to the startup, changeover, and shutdown times. And the reason that the typical line operator wants to run the crap out of it all day long is because of those things, because of the cost of doing startup and changeover and shutdown. So you've got to attack all of the elements, the steps in those procedures. If you can eliminate some of them or reduce them, the whole reason for running all day long goes away. Now imagine you had this line, you had this brewery, and the retailers, they would electronically send you orders every day, a few cases of this, a few cases of that, 10 of this, and you actually package them to order, stress strap it up on a pallet. You made one brand, the next brand, the next brand. It was like 5-minute changeover between brands. That's all it cost you. It was really, really efficient. Send that pallet with that mix right off to them, skip the whole wholesaler completely, right? You're literally producing right to the direct orders in real time. Instead of making this cases and cases, 100 cases, and then pushing it to the retailer, pushing it to the wholesaler, and then they break it down and they finally get it to them. Imagine we had a system to do that. So maybe that's not possible yet, but I'm trying to get the mindset straight with you that this is how you want to think about it. How can I get closer and closer to that perfect situation where I could do that? You can only do that by, again, really closely examining all those technical steps and doing some experiments, right? You got to take a little time and effort, try a few things, and the sublines, unfortunately, they're designed for, who knows, 1,000 cases an hour or something. Those are going to be problems. I mean, you're not going to be able to do what I said with those. Those are designed for very, very large volume operations, and you want to make sure you're going to buy a line. It's designed to be more flexible, not less flexible, as you grow. That's really what you're looking for. We're probably going to have some inventory at the end of the chain, end of the supply chain. So for the inventory we're going to have stuck in our warehouse, let's be careful how we manage it, right? We want to do it in a very organized way. No random storage. That's bad. Things will get lost, they'll get old, not good. So this is a simple example. If you want to maximize your footprint, you can stack your kegs 3 high, but of course when you do that, you can't see the color. So here we have a little method to have these colored little tags, so you can see what everything is. And you notice that everything's in a lane, so anybody who walks in there can see instantly what we have and how much it is. Self-serve information, so no random storage, make it easy. Of course, having less would be even better, but if you're going to have some, make sure that nothing gets lost and it's totally organized. And lastly, distributors, if you happen to have a distributor. I do not. But as I sort of hinted to earlier, you want to think about them as an extension of your supply chain. Obviously, they're a separate company. They have their own goals, own business practices and things like that. But you really want to see their inventory of your stuff, and you want to know the sales rates too, the final sales rates too. You want all that information so you can incorporate it to how you run your chain. Now, I'm not sure they're all going to be amenable to that, but they're supposed to be partners, right? And maybe if you can have a process that drives down their inventory, maybe they're going to pay you for it. I mean, they should pay you for it, right? They should cut your break because you're making it flow faster for them too, right? They want fast flow too. That's the business that they're in too. So don't forget about that. That you want to. This could be a big effort. I don't know, but this is where all the money is actually. There's sometimes a lot of money in the distribution chain that you seemingly can't control, but you want to see it at least. You want to be, you don't want them to just put these huge orders on you and then, you bang it out and forget it and assume they're going to take care of it. That is really not going to be good for you in the end if it doesn't sell through. So you really want to not only know what their inventories are of your stuff and the sales rate. You want to participate in setting max and min inventory levels. Because again, it's an extension of your chain, right? They're supposed to be helping you, right? Oh yeah, one small thing. Distributors, of course, if you get into forecast, they are in the sales business, and the nature of salespeople is they're very optimistic. And so I just sort of remind you that be careful with forecasts. They always tend to be optimistic, and you want the real sell-through data. That you want to work with the real numbers of what's actually selling, not so much what they think they're going to sell, because you've given them a new brand and that kind of thing.
Is that a problem you face with your sales force, Paul?
So, so I have an interesting arrangement. No, actually, no, I have a good arrangement with my distributor. So I hold all the inventory, and I have very good visibility of it. And we package to order for in this case. We don't guess and package ahead. Fast turnaround packaging is how we do it. What are they doing? Yeah. All right, so some conclusions, just to wrap it up. So inventory is often overlooked as a source of improvement, business improvement, things like that, but it shouldn't be. So what I want you to do is treat it as a problem. As I said, it's not your friend, it's not a good thing. But by focusing on how the supply chain operates, aligning all the steps in the chain, and you'll take that lead time out, which then will reduce the inventory. A new source of savings that maybe you haven't thought of. Now the beauty of all this is it's time and effort. I haven't said you got to go out and buy a bunch of stuff, right? It's not going to cost you anything. It is brain time, bit of effort, but as it says, you can do this. And that's it. So questions, we'll take a few questions. We got 15 minutes or so. So there's my email, and there is also my address too, if you want to come and visit me in Rochester and see how I've implemented some of these ideas. Great to see you. Have a beer and talk about it. So, all right, Andy, questions? Go.
My brewery, we're sort of on the cusp of signing with a distributor. What approach would you recommend these initial, offloading inventory to them, at least for the first few months, let's say?
Using offloading, that doesn't sound good. So it sounds like you have a brewery, and you've got inventory in your warehouse, and obviously they're going to pick it up when they get, okay. Well, certainly in your negotiations with them before you sign, you want to find out what they think about inventory. Do they think it's a good thing or a bad thing? and that should help your decision to maybe go with them. And you want to start early with the kind of data and data sharing you want to do with them, right? If they say, they scratching their head, we have no idea what you're talking about, they're probably not the right ones in this particular aspect. Maybe they've got other virtues, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. What else? What else? Yeah. In the back there. Go ahead.
As far as raw material inventory, how far are you looking out when you're setting those orders? I know a pallet or 2 pallets is different for every brewery based on their barrelage, and so how far are you looking out?
All right. Yep. Got it. Unfortunately, the full pallet economics are so strong. You're going to be forced into full pallets, right? That's obvious. So for us, that's at least a month, and so I got to look out that far. You're right. I'm guessing. I'm making a forecast of sorts. So if you're a bigger brewery and you're getting several pallets a week, it's a piece of cake. It's like, what are we going to eat tomorrow? Kind of thing. That's really good flow. That's really good. So it's going to be driven on how much your consumption is that fits in a ton pallet. So again, you're stuck doing some forecasting. But again, the thing to feel good about is that raw materials are very flexible, right? That base grain you can make a lot of things out of. And again, if you have a simplified recipe design, you're not ordering a huge variety. It's a very controlled variety, and therefore the risk of ordering ahead is, of course, lower. So it kind of works together there. Yeah, go ahead.
Just in that same vein, because of that, are you avoiding contracts with raw materials, like hop contracts? Because then you've already given yourself a set time that you have to have all that inventory.
Yeah, we do contract for some of our hops, but that was driven mostly by the growers and their availability of specific hops. It kind of got forced into that. I would not have done that. Lupulin exchange, you probably know, that's a great way to get fairly fresh hops really quickly. But hops are a little different animal because of the season element. You want the freshest you can, and it only comes out once a year, and it gets all bought up, and then you're stuck buying older stuff. So you may be forced to carry more. Hops are more of a problem for us. 11-pound box or a cryo box would be 22 pounds equivalent. That's going to last me a long time. So again, this is where I come back to the recipe design. I'm going to be very careful about the varieties because I have to buy, the minimum purchase is so large. And there's not that much I can do about that unless I can share that box with somebody, things like that, which is what I said before. I'm not sure, am I answering that question? I don't know, maybe I'm not.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Mostly just how are you considering the economics of ordering exactly what you need versus saving money through ordering?
You definitely have to do the math. So as you think about what inventory is worth and the cost of carrying it, it's not huge. So, you're willing to pay a little bit more to remove that inventory, but not much. You definitely have to work the angles, so to speak. So a contract, I don't know, for me, the contract price isn't that much better than the spot price when you finally get there. But as I say, we entered those, and because we wouldn't be able to get it at all. Remember, I don't know, I was looking for Galaxy or something. There's no way I had to contract it. I would never see it. So regardless of any price, right? So that was driving up the contracting. So if you're doing it to get a really good price or to get something that's just not going to be available, then you're going to have to contract, and you're going to get committed to the inventory. So that's the way that goes. You want that hop, you're going to have to commit to the inventory. Okay? Yeah. Go ahead.
Would you consider pre-sales to be a good way of managing inventory? More specifically, the way we used to work is our sales team would pre-sell 800 cases of our core beer, and we would order for that, and we'd be good. And now we seem to move away from that.
Oh yeah, I don't know whether so that I thought I had a little example of that. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to work for you. That cash cycle time is telling by if you don't already have the materials in the inventory, right? If you're going to use that money and then go buy the stuff in just the right amount, that's perfect, absolutely perfect. That's what you want to do. But if it's stuff you already have, then you're not really helping. Well, okay, the revenue is coming in earlier, but you already have the inventory. Who knows? Maybe you purchased that inventory a month ago, so you're just recovering it a little sooner. So the real power is to then drive the supply chain from the money that you got from the pre-sale. It's a great idea if you can pull it off, absolutely. What else? So you know, this is a good point. We're not really, as you can see, we're not talking about inventory per se. We're talking about how to drive the supply chain in a way that removes the need for inventory. That's a key point. I've probably said it twice already, but go ahead.
No, this is Hershey, sorry.
Oh, you're just stretching. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stretch my left arm a little here.
Got a couple minutes left for questions.
Time for a few more? Okay, all right. Got a tough Friday afternoon topic, but anyway, again, I'm open to afterward, more questions, email me, whatever. You want to see that spreadsheet for the pipeline analysis, just pop me an email and I'll send it on to you. Okay?
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you.